The SPY now turns to the analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former Reagan and Bush White House aide. Good afternoon, all. Al, it's pretty clear in the last couple of days that there's been an escalation of President Trump's Twitter attacks on not only Joe Biden, but people, media. And this morning it was reported that Trump is now looking for ways to regulate, quote unquote, social media sites after he was fact-checked last night, I guess. How does Biden respond? Does he follow Nancy Pelosi's lead, kind of giving him a taste of his own medicine? Or do you become the adult in the room?
Look, I think that Biden needs to remember that his challenge in this race is to make this a referendum on President Trump. So I would answer his charges, but on Biden's terms. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But I would not go and get in the gutter with him and throw wild, untrue charges at him the way, I mean, the president's really gone off at the deep end and he's throwing everything at everybody. It's fine to have surrogates go after him, go after the president, but I wouldn't. And here's what I mean. Actually, let's take an example from the campaign that Craig and I were involved in 1992. If you remember 1988, George H.W. Bush ran a brilliant campaign against Michael Dukakis. Dukakis was ahead by 17 points coming out of the convention. And Bush went after him, defined Dukakis as a typical liberal, and that stuck because Dukakis didn't respond. Well, in '92, when Bill Clinton was ahead of Bush as they went into the Republican convention, Bush made up some ground and he attacked Clinton as a tax and spender, and he had these ads running that accused Clinton of raising taxes 128 times. And a lot of the boys, Carville and the boys, all wanted to jump in and, go toe to toe. And I said to Clinton, answer these, but do it on your terms. So the next time he says you raise taxes in Arkansas, because as we started to answer, we said, no, he didn't do it 128 times. He only did it 60 times. Well, that was basically making their point. I said, answer it this way. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm a different kind of Democrat. I'm for ending welfare as we know it. I'm for capital punishment. I'm for asking kids to serve their country in order to earn college aid. I'm a different kind of Democrat. And then we went on the air with an ad to back that up on welfare reform. And within a week, we gained all the ground that Bush had gained. So the point is that Biden ought to keep this focused on Trump and run it as a referendum on Trump.
Greg, you're an official nice guy. What's your suggestion for the former vice president?
Well, I think, first of all, that Vice President Biden needs to better define himself. I know he believes that his record in the Senate and his 8 years as vice president count for a lot. And there's no doubt that he accomplished many things in those roles. But I get a sense, maybe Al and I disagree here, I get a sense he's resting on the laurels. I've thought that the comment about, Black people not supporting him, it was clearly a gaffe and clearly a mistake. But what I would have been concerned about if I was in his campaign even more was kind of the foundation for making that statement, that they all know what I did. Why aren't they for me? And that's not going to work in this presidential election year. People are looking to better understand who Joe Biden really is, and do they understand the problems they as voters face. So that's number one. Number two, I don't think he gets there by attacking Donald Trump. And in a campaign, and Al alluded to this, in a campaign there are many voices. And the candidate's voice does not have to do all the work. There's plenty of people to go attack the incumbent president. And Lord knows he provides fodder for that every single day. Biden's job is different. And I was thinking as I listened to a long interview he did with Dana Bash just recently, he was talking a little bit almost like a campaign operative. He was analyzing his own campaign a little bit, what he has to do. Although the interview is pretty good, I do not think that's what he should do. And I was reminded of the great late, in my view, Howard Baker, United States Senator from Kansas. And he had this wonderful way, every time he got asked a question, no matter how crazy the question might be, he would say, well, there's two very important points. And then you listen carefully because you wanted to know what he was going to tell you that was important. And Biden has to do more of that and be more presidential.
Well, speaking of the campaign, there seems to be a lot of material or articles about the importance of the African American vote or the importance of the Latino community. But more recently, this has also been directed at the senior community. And I don't know about you all, but I don't remember the senior constituency being talked about in probably a decade. What do you make of this? Craig, let's go with you.
You know, there's something that could be happening here, and that is this whole notion that more of us are going to vote by mail, and I'm sure indeed we are. Meaning, you don't have to get people to the polling place. You might have to help them vote and get their mail ballot sent in, but you don't have to get them to the polling place, and that could change the equation a little bit. I also think that seniors are those that are probably most troubled by the virus, by the economy, by the, are they going to outlive their money? So they've got a lot of very real concerns. And I think Biden could appeal to those. And you can't, if you're Donald Trump, just count on their support.
Al, what's your thought?
In 2016, in swing state after swing state, Trump won seniors by about 10%. And as you look at the polling now, Biden's winning seniors by about 5, 10, 8 points in almost every important swing state. If that happens, Biden's going to win. If that turns out to be the result, Biden's going to be the next president of the United States. But Craig is right, and I think that Trump is hurt more by seniors by his performance on the coronavirus than about any other group. I mean, they're the most vulnerable. He's had surrogates like the lieutenant governor of Texas essentially say, well, it's okay if old people die, if you're over 70, let's just keep the economy going. And this crazy, going back and forth from, closing everything down and then opening everything up and trying medicine man cures, all of this, seniors sit back and say, you're playing with our lives. And so I think it's going to hurt Trump a lot. But Craig made a very good point about Biden. He does have to define himself, and he also has to cross a threshold saying that people got to say, he's better than Trump. That isn't a high threshold, but he's still got to cross it.
Finally, I couldn't help but be interested in the Trump campaign now against North Carolina, which the GOP is scheduled to have their convention there in Charlotte. And because the state has not declared whether or not there will be social distancing in Charlotte, the president has said, well, maybe that he will take the convention someplace else. Last time I checked, North Carolina is still a significant swing state. I don't know what the logic would be. And Craig, what do you think about all this?
There's been a long debate, and I know Al's been part of this too, about just what a convention actually does for a candidate. In our history, in our lifetimes, the candidates have gone into these conventions with the outcome pretty well determined. And you tie everybody up for 4 days for what's become a very large media show. This year, we may actually have a discussion about this and fundamentally alter the way the conventions are run. I can't for the life of me understand why either party would want to bring large numbers of people in close proximity with one another who, by the way, are their most active grassroots activists when it comes to the general election, and they run the risk of people spreading the virus. So I think we're going to see a change, and I think that's more important probably than this silly debate about the location. I will say this, having actually run a convention, it takes months and months of planning, and for the president to just kind of dismiss the idea that it's going to be where they said it was going to be in North Carolina and they've been working for so long is kind of silly. Now, if it's a smaller event, if it's a media event, I suppose he could stage it anywhere, but I think it'd just be disruptive for his campaign. I do think we're going to see a smaller made-for-television event, probably shorter in duration.
Al?
First of all, who wants to have a convention when every doctor in America says you stay away from large crowds? The only person who cares about that is the president, because he doesn't care if he kills everybody. All he wants to do is get everybody to cheer him for an hour. And why you can pull a convention out of a swing state doesn't make any sense to me. And besides, I mean, Craig is absolutely right. Conventions take months, if not years, to plan. Often you want to go to a city and you can't go there because there aren't enough hotel rooms. There are all sorts of different problems with the convention. But to be honest with you, I mean, I think just what President Trump is doing is he wants to divert attention from his performance on the virus. And he will do everything. That's why he's attacking Biden. That's why he's attacking Obama. That's why he's attacking Joe Scarborough. And that's why he wants to change the convention site, because it's a Democratic governor. He thinks he's scoring points.
I would add one thing. I think when you just take the topics we've covered and where President Trump is today, there's something unwinding in that place. Some of his campaign aides say that it's very hard to recast the campaign because the central problem is the candidate. That's coming from his own campaign aides, anonymously, I will grant you. But I think we're hitting lower and lower points week by week. And I'm, for one, not sure how long that can last. If you're a Republican member of the United States Senate, up for election, you have got to be scared to death. You don't know day in and day out what the leader of your party is going to do or say that could reflect on your reelection. And that has consequences, because nothing scares these men and women more than the possibility of losing that high office they hold.
Well, he's also kind of making the case already that no matter what the result is, if he loses, this will be a corrupt process. And we're going to have to physically escort him out of the White House, apparently.
You know, I'm not sure that there isn't some groundwork being laid, and I probably will regret saying this, but some groundwork being laid for whether he even stays in this race. I mean, I could imagine a scenario where he blames, acts of God that he had no control over for making it impossible for him to run. Almost an LBJ, kind of statement, Al, that he's got to deal with these issues and he can't deal with the issues and run for office at the same time. Now,
you just mentioned the Republicans running for Senate. I mean, they've got to be scared out of their minds. And I wonder if there's at some point, we both were around when Barry Goldwater and John Tower went down and told Nixon it was all over. Now, Mitch McConnell doesn't seem to be that kind of a guy, but but at some point, you think they'd be interested in at least trying to get him out through the 25th Amendment or something? I mean, he surely seems to me to be gone off the deep end. Now, I've never been a Trump guy. I know you haven't been a big Trump fan either. But I believe in two parties, and he is destroying this two-party system.
Al Fromm and Craig Fuller, thanks a lot. See you next time.